It's a good Sunday morning. Welcome to Church of the Total Man, a church for men. Today we are in Proverbs chapter 23. So get a Bible if you have one, a cup of coffee, and just sit back and listen to the wisdom of the ages. Proverbs chapter 23. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are given to appetite. Well, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? In other words, don't get too flattered. Don't flatter yourself if you're sitting down with a ruler. There's probably a reason why you are with that person. One interpretation of that says, don't get too excited about the food, but get excited about the ruler or the diplomat. So pay attention to the person whose company you are in more than you are paying attention to the food. When I think about business meetings that I go to, business lunches, business breakfasts, I just had one on Friday, and the food was pretty darn good. But I paid more attention to the person across the table from me and was listening to them and thinking about ways to help them grow, not just fill my belly. Practical. Very, very practical. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. You can be bribed by food, right? Think about the things that you can be bribed by. Somebody taking you out to dinner. Somebody giving you gifts. Be aware of someone who's trying to influence you with something other than good, solid reasoning. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Does that mean we shouldn't look for wealth? I don't think we should be wringing our hands. I think if we have skills, I think if we have motivation and drive, I think wealth is just a natural byproduct of our hard work, smart work. Remember the first time when you thought to yourself, I would rather do smart work than hard work. And when you started working smarter, like a little light bulb went on in your head, and you said, this is so much easier than working hard. Better to work smart. Toiling to acquire wealth. Health is wealth. Never lose your health to acquire wealth. We've had a couple generations of people working 60 hours a week, 70, 80 hours a week. Okay, the paycheck is pretty good, but you can't sustain that for long, can you? I know people that plan their overtime when they can because they want to put a new deck on the back of the house, or the car is getting old and they need to buy a new car. So you plan your overtime versus just having an overtime type of lifestyle, which will ruin your health. If you don't have your health, what do you have? When your eyes light on it, it is gone. For suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle towards heaven. Interesting, right? Wealth can disappear pretty darn quick if you don't have a plan for it. Years ago, I taught, if you don't tell your money what to do, you will wonder where it went. Kind of tongue-in-cheek investment advice. Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy. Do not desire his delicacies, for he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels that you have eaten and waste your pleasant words. Boy, that's a nice picture, isn't it? But I think the extreme language, the hyperbole, is meant to communicate something to us, isn't it? There are people in this world who will use you. You know the joke of the guy that pulls into work and then the boss pulls in next to him in a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, a very high-end sports car. And the employee says, "Boy, that is a really nice car. That is sharp." And the boss says, "Yes, if you are dedicated, work long hours, then I'll be able to get another one next year." Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. Did you ever feel like you've wasted your words on people? Did you ever feel like your good advice just kind of falls on deaf ears? That's what it's like talking to someone who is foolish. Your experience is not appreciated. And because you might have a good heart, you want to help somebody, but a foolish person will not take your advice or your teaching. So know when to open your mouth. Don't volunteer advice. If people want help, they can ask for it. But you can tell someone who is foolish some of the wisest counsel in the world, and they're going to do nothing with it. Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you. Do not move an ancient landmark. Memorials, I think, are important. I think boundaries are important. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Apply your heart to instruction. It's not just a mental game. It's part of the heart. It's encouraging us to go deeper with what we learn, not just head knowledge. Do you know people that are really smart, high IQ, very articulate? I do. But you know it's not in their heart. Wouldn't you rather be around people who are smart and compassionate and apply their heart to instruction? Head knowledge, degrees, credentials, cool. But without compassion, without love, it means nothing. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Kind of an extreme version of child discipline, which I am not a huge fan of. If you strike him with a rod, you will save his soul from Sheol. That's not the first line of teaching, I should say. I would much rather have you set boundaries and reason with a child than to use that type of physical discipline with them. It's very punitive. Do not withhold discipline from a child. The focus is on discipline, not punishment. A lot of people will use that as a proof text for punishment, corporal punishment. That's not the case here. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. I like it when I see people exercise wisdom. It makes me proud. If I see my children making good decisions, and even seeing many of my followers making good decisions, it brings joy to my heart. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. So many of us in the men's community, we want to see people succeed. We don't want to see them fail. So when you open your mouth and good things come out, when you have success in relationships and success at work and are prospering and have good health, it makes the teachers happy and content. And that is the sign of a good teacher. if they're happy in your success. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day. Sometimes it seems like the wayward are having more fun than you. They have a better life than you. And then for a moment you ponder, maybe I should be doing that as well. There's a lot of messages in the men's community. I see these guys partying at clubs. This whole thing of like being in clubs, meeting people in clubs, meeting a woman in a club. And they have the champagne bottle and the sparklers and all this kind of stuff. Is that what life really is? Some people say, don't judge it until you've experienced it. I wouldn't want to experience that personally. To me, that's not anything that's exciting. You kind of get to the point in life where you don't want to be somewhere where the music is so loud that you can't hear someone else speak. And the women are half naked, seductive, distracting you, and pouring you alcohol. Some will say that's life, that's living. I can tell you, that's not life, that's not living. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, what happened to restaurants? Restaurants, the music in restaurants now is so loud. You can't have a quiet dinner anywhere, like anywhere. Any of the restaurant chains, the music is so loud, you can't even hear the person across the table talk. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. A lot of people just want to know that they have a future. Despair kicks in when we don't feel like we have anything ahead of us, that there's no future. I can tell you right now, you do have a future, and it's bright. Hear my son and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. In the way. And that's what we're teaching here, Church of the Total Man. Be not amongst drunkards or among gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. It's kind of like the lifestyle that I was just talking about. People living, my father would say the phrase, high on the hog. Did you ever hear that phrase before? Living high on the hog. People spending money on super expensive external things that are just purchased for effect or to impress others. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Listen to your father who gave you life, and don't despise your mother. It's not just a suggestion there. It's a commandment. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice, making your parents proud. If you no longer have your parents here on this earth, just know that they are part of the great cloud of witnesses cheering you on as you're running this race. Can you imagine yourself approaching the finish line and your deceased mother and or father are in the stands saying, go, 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 you can do it, you got this. Your relationship with them is not deceased, even though they may be physically deceased. And that is what the communion of saints is all about, the encouragement of the saints. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways. Oh boy, here we go. For a prostitute is a deep pit, an adulteress is a narrow well. She lies in wait like a robber and increases the traitors among mankind. Trouble. A woman can be trouble in your life. The wrong woman. Conversely, the right woman, or a woman who fears the Lord. Remember what fear means? Those who shun sin. A woman who shuns sin can be a blessing to you. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine, those who go and try mixed wine. Do not look at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, like one who lies on top of a mast. They struck me, you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. The perils of excessive alcohol use. Some of you know the dangers and the perils of that. You've paid a price. Is it time to put that away? I was having a conversation with somebody last night. And for me, my average consumption of alcohol is about a half a glass of wine. And I'm good. But there are people who can't control themselves. They don't have the self-control. It has to be a full glass of wine, and then a second, and then a third, and then a fourth, or other forms of alcohol. I remember years ago I explained to you, if you've been following me for years, that I went from drinking alcohol for effect to drinking it for the taste. I like a half a glass of wine with dinner. It's perfect for me. There are times when I am reading something and having a pipe or a cigar, and I want to sip on a distilled spirit, but I don't want to be swimming in a barrel of it. I'm not doing it to relax. I know all across every culture in modern society, people need something to calm down. They need cocktails. They need a drink. They come home and crack open a beer to relax, to release the stress, to distract them from their anxiety, their depression, their confusion, maybe a marriage or relationship that they're not really into. In most bars across the world, between 4 and 6 p.m., there's a thing called happy hour. My happy hour is between 4 and 6 a.m., and it's usually with a cup of coffee. I say that jokingly, but every hour for me is a happy hour. I don't designate an hour or two at the end of a workday as the happy hour. But it's funny how happy hour in modern society is usually paired with alcohol. Do you need alcohol to be happy? To make the pain go away, to make any distractions and bad relationship stuff go away? Does alcohol make life more bearable for you? That's the first sign that something needs to change. Thank you for attending Church of the Total Man, a church for men. Next week we will be in Proverbs chapter 24.